They say you always know. I didn't. Not when I caught her glancing too long at her phone. Not when she started taking late walks to clear her head. Not even when she stopped calling me love. Her name is Emily, and for 8 years, she was my wife. A hospice nurse by training, gentle by nature, the kind of woman who cried at dog food commercials and bought fresh-cut flowers for no occasion. I was a high school counselor. Still am. I believed in us because we were quiet. No drama. No screaming matches. We always said we'd grown into each other like ivy up a fence. But ivy doesn't always hold. Sometimes it strangles. It started on a Tuesday. I was walking our dog, Boone, around the neighborhood like always. Same hoodie, same earbuds. She said she'd be home late, something about a patient needing extra support. I didn't question it. I respected what she did. But when Boone stopped to nose at the curb near 53rd and Maple, I glanced up. And saw her car. Parked crooked, tucked half under a low-hanging tree. Engine off. Headlights dimmed. I remember thinking, maybe she stopped for coffee. But I kept walking. And that's when I saw the porch light flick on. Not just any porch. Tanner Risa's. He used to teach with her. Divorced. Fit. Ran trail marathons and posted inspirational quotes under shirtless selfies. Emily always said he was harmless. That night, she stayed there for 47 minutes. I didn't confront her. I didn't even come home angry. I just waited. In bed. Lights off. She slipped in just before midnight and whispered, "Sorry, long night." She didn't kiss me. Didn't even change clothes before climbing into bed. She smelled like mint gum and wood smoke. And I laid beside her, blinking at the ceiling, thinking. She thinks I'm still asleep. The next morning, she brewed my coffee just like always. Almond milk, cinnamon, 1 packet of raw sugar. Same ritual. But she wouldn't meet my eyes. I decided then, I wouldn't rage. Wouldn't beg. I'd listen. Watch. Memorize. She didn't know it yet, but the story of us had just ended. What came next would be my story. One she would never forget. I started keeping notes. Every night after she fell asleep, I jotted things down in a private Google Doc. Her calls with Carla lasting exactly 22 minutes. The rise in makeup on days she said she barely slept. The mismatched undergarments, new, lacy, not hers. I wasn't interested in proof. I wasn't preparing for divorce court. I was building a character study. For one person only. Her. 3 weeks later, I installed a smart camera above the front porch. Then one in the hallway. And one, without telling her, in the guest bedroom, disguised as an air purifier. Not to catch them. To document her behavior when she thought no one was watching. People show who they really are in borrowed beds. I didn't want to hurt her physically. That was too easy. I wanted her to see herself, clearly, publicly, and without the safety of denial. But for that, I needed an audience. One that mattered to her. So I started volunteering. At her hospice center. She thought it was sweet. She even joked, "Now you're the nurturing one." But it wasn't about kindness. It was proximity. Within 3 weeks, I met Sandy, her coworker of 6 years. Within 6 more, Sandy told me how cute it was that Emily and Tanner had kept it low-key for so long. She thought I already knew. I just smiled. And kept listening. Because the deeper someone buries a lie, the louder it sounds when you finally dig it up. Revenge isn't always about destruction. Sometimes it's about clarity. Like setting a glass down on a table hard enough to make someone look, but not hard enough to break it. That's what I was doing. Setting things down. Loudly, quietly. Right where she couldn't ignore them. Emily always prided herself on her empathy. She could read a room in seconds, feel the air shift around pain like a tuning fork. But when it came to her own reflection, she was blind. That was my leverage. At the hospice center, I kept showing up. Brought coffee for the team. Sat in on volunteer orientations. Asked thoughtful questions. Every time someone mentioned Emily, I smiled like she was a saint. But behind the smile, I was collecting stories. Phrases. How she took long lunches with Tanner, or how she once cancelled an end-of-life session to run errands, which Sandy admitted always meant Tanner time. These people adored her. That was part of the tragedy, she had fooled them, too. But not for long. 3 weeks in, I started a memory wall project for patients and families, a physical collage in the front hallway with photos, quotes, thank yous, even letters from grieving spouses. I pitched it at the team meeting. Everyone loved it. Especially Emily. She kissed my cheek after and said, see? I always knew you had more to give. That made my skin crawl. She thought she was mentoring me. She thought she was still above me. That belief would make what came next cut twice as deep. One night, I printed a photo. It was from a patient named Ray, a Vietnam vet who'd passed the week before. He'd written a note thanking Emily and mentioned how she reminded him of the redhead I left behind in Saigon. I scanned the letter. Printed it on thick paper. Added it to the wall. Right beneath it, I slipped something else. A still shot. Low res. Color corrected to look nostalgic. But it was Emily, standing on Tanner's porch, her hand brushing his chest. It looked innocent. Almost. Unless you'd seen the live footage like I had. When she walked past the wall 2 days later, I watched her face. No one else noticed. But she did. She paused. Blinked. Then laughed lightly and said, that photo looks a lot like me. I shrugged. Ray's daughter must have found it online. She said she pulled it from Facebook. Emily nodded. Smiled. But her fingers trembled against the corner of the photo before she walked away. That's how you start to dismantle a liar. You don't accuse them. You let their own mind do the tearing. At home, she started watching me more closely. Asked if something was wrong. Said I seemed quieter. I told her I'd been thinking a lot about death lately. About what people leave behind. She took it as intimacy. She slept closer that night. I stared at the ceiling and felt the heat of her body like an insult. I changed her phone's lock screen. She left it charging in the kitchen, face up. Easy enough. I replaced her photo of a mountain trail with a blurred screen grab from one of my camera clips, just her outline, stepping out of Tanner's house at night. Not explicit. Not damning. Just familiar. The next morning, she didn't say a word. But she changed the screen back to the mountain. Then deleted her cloud backup. Which meant she thought it was a sync error. But now. Now she was sweating. And I hadn't even raised my voice. One afternoon, Sandy pulled me aside at the center. I'm probably overstepping, she said. But you seem heavy lately. I smiled. I'm doing okay. She touched my shoulder. Then added, you know, people change when they're seen. I don't know what Emily's told you, but... I stopped her. You're kind. But I know everything I need to. She blinked. And maybe, for the first time, someone other than me understood. At home, Emily began making plans. Couples therapy. A weekend getaway. She brought home my favorite wine. She even said we should revisit our vows for our anniversary. That's how you know a person's drowning. They try to throw nostalgia like a lifeline. But me? I was already ashore. Just waiting for the tide to pull her under. By early summer, I had her routine memorized like a monologue. Tuesday nights were yoga, the class didn't exist. Thursday mornings she left early for peer grief counseling. That was Tanner's coffee day. Saturday afternoons, she'd call her sister from the car, but the GPS history showed otherwise. I wasn't cataloging for court. I was creating the stage. Hospice care is sacred work. It's built on presence, compassion, trust. And Emily was beloved there. But even shrines have cracks when the candle burns too long. So I created a moment. The memory wall had grown, dozens of letters, photos, tributes from family members thanking the staff. It had become a place of reverence. No one noticed the quiet envelope I added. Cream paper, handwritten, slipped among the others. From a fictional name, Miriam A., daughter of patient Harold Linney. Inside, the letter read. We always appreciated how much time Emily gave Dad, even when she was so clearly elsewhere. I remember the one day she stepped out mid-visit, said it was a personal emergency. Later we saw her through the window laughing on someone's porch across the street. It broke Mom's heart. But we chose to believe she meant well. Sometimes grief blinds us from the obvious. No accusation. No details. Just a nudge. And hospice staff, I've learned, listen to nudges. 2 days later, I saw Sandy reading it. She folded it slowly, placed it back, and didn't speak a word to Emily that shift. The next morning, Emily woke up with puffy eyes. She told me she thought something weird was going on at work, that people were being cold. I just sipped my coffee. Maybe you're just overthinking, I said. And I smiled when I said it, because it was her line. Her deflection. Her old trick. She blinked, almost like she heard herself in my voice. Almost. I had one move left before the final stroke. Emily's phone used to back up automatically to our shared home server. She thought she'd disabled it. She hadn't. I found hundreds of photos. Some harmless. Others not. Screenshots of her texts with Tanner. Flirty. Blurred lines. But worse were the voice memos, little clips she'd sent him while she was sitting in our backyard, telling him how he made her forget the quiet of her life. That one cut. Because I wasn't noise. I was her silence, the space where she could have healed. But she wanted chaos more. I uploaded those clips to an anonymous Dropbox. Then scheduled a message to send to 6 people. Sandy. Her shift manager. Her sister. Her best friend Claire. Tanner's ex-wife. And Emily. Same link. No message. Just the clips. I used her voice. Her words. Let her explain them if she could. The day it went out, she came home early. I was reading on the porch. She stood in front of me, shaking, phone in hand. You did this. It wasn't a question. I didn't look up.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing experience. But we really need your support, namely a subscription to the channel, which can make it possible to hire a professional voice actor and make the best content for you.
Just said. You've been talking for months, Em. I just let people hear you. She sat down hard on the step, like someone pulled the bones from her legs. For a while, she didn't speak. Then she whispered, You humiliated me. I closed the book, calmly. No. You did. I just gave the silence a mic. That night, she packed a bag. No screaming. No accusations. Just the soft click of zippers and the rustle of clothes she once wore when she promised she'd never leave. She slept on the couch. And in the morning, she was gone. She left the porch light on. Which was funny, in a way. Because it was the only thing she never lied about. She always said she hated coming home in the dark. I didn't chase her. Didn't lock the door behind her either. Because some people don't need to be thrown out. They need to see themselves walking away. She moved out on a Sunday. No note. No final monologue. Just a cardboard box left on the kitchen table, filled with mismatched coffee mugs, an old sweater of mine she used to sleep in, and a single photo of us from Yellowstone, folded, not torn. That was her language, a drama in symbols. But for the first time, I didn't bother translating. I cleaned the house top to bottom the next day. Not out of grief, out of reclamation. Every room she used to walk through with invisible ownership now felt mine again. Even the air was different. Like someone had stopped humming a song I never liked. I unplugged the hallway camera. Wiped the server. I'd gotten what I needed. The truth, played out in her voice, her footsteps, her story, without my fingerprint on any of it. Let her explain it now. Let her live in the pause between questions she can't answer. Her job didn't fire her. Hospice centers don't run on gossip. But she asked to be relocated to another facility across town. Sandy told me. We'd become something like friends, not flirtation, just two people who saw the same wreckage and chose not to pretend. She doesn't talk about you, Sandy said once. She never really did, I answered. That stung a little more than I thought it would. A month later, I got a letter. Not a text. A real letter. Handwritten. From Claire, Emily's best friend. Inside were just 3 sentences. She's telling people you manipulated her. I think she believes it. But I don't. No return address. Just a postmark from Seattle. I smiled, folded the letter, and tucked it into the drawer beside my passport, a quiet place for proof that someone saw. That fall, I started teaching again. Public high school. English Lit and a creative writing elective. New students. New staff. New lunch table. No one knew my story. And for the first time in years, I didn't lead with it. That silence. It was mine now. One day in class, a junior named Owen asked if writing could make someone feel seen even after they're gone. I told him, that's the only kind of writing that matters. And I meant it. Because I had seen her. I had written the version of her she never meant to show. And I'd let her keep the version she made for others, broken, bruised, still lying in its own reflection. That was the most painful revenge I could offer, letting her live with the version she built, and watching as it no longer held. She emailed me once. Months later. Just one line. You could have ruined me. And I replied. No. I just stopped protecting you. She never wrote again. The porch light. I kept it. I replaced the bulb every few months. Not because I miss her. Because I like knowing that if someone drives by at night, they'll see a house still lit. Still whole. Still his. One Saturday evening, I walked Boone past Tanner Street. His porch was dark. For sale sign leaning slightly in the grass. Empty. I didn't feel triumph. Or justice. Or glee. Just the kind of stillness that follows after a hard rain. Like the air knows it doesn't have to prove anything anymore. Revenge isn't about erasing someone. It's about remembering yourself, cleanly, quietly, without flinching. I didn't destroy her. I simply opened the curtain. And she did the rest. There's a moment, weeks after the worst of it ends, where you look in the mirror and expect to see a ruin. But all you see, is a man. Standing. Breathing. Still shaving on Tuesdays. No scars. No visible breakage. Just a strange stillness where fire used to live. That was me. Life didn't rush back in. It arrived in pieces. One morning I stopped checking her Instagram. The next week I deleted our anniversary from my calendar. Then came the hard one. I stopped imagining what she'd say if she saw me now. That's how you know you're healing, when your silence stops auditioning for her memory. I started jogging again. 5 a.m. routes through the neighborhood, hoodie up, no music. Just the sound of my own feet and the breath I never realized I'd been holding for years. The city felt different when no one expected me to arrive. I kept teaching. My writing students surprised me. Their essays weren't about trauma. They wrote about cracked phone screens, their mom's weird meatloaf, missing socks. Tiny things. Things that matter when your world isn't on fire. I envied them for that. But I also learned from it. Because even when the world burns down, someone still has to take out the trash. Someone still has to pick up dog food. Someone still has to learn how to sleep again without the shape of someone else's sorrow in the bed. One afternoon, I caught myself humming in the car. Just a random tune. Something from the 90s. But it was the first time in a year I'd made music without realizing it. And I nearly pulled over just to laugh. Not because it was funny. Because I hadn't even noticed. And that meant I was no longer narrating my survival. I was just living. Then one night, I opened my email to find a message from someone named Tessa Raymond. No subject line. The body read. You don't know me, but I was in Emily's grief writing group. I figured you should know something. She used to tell us about you. Said you were too calm to care. Said you never raised your voice, and that was its own kind of cruelty. But after reading what she wrote, I think she just wasn't ready for someone who listened that closely. That's not cruelty. That's reflection. Thought you might want to know. Take care. I didn't reply. Didn't need to. But I bookmarked the email, just like Claire's letter. Because no matter how loud a liar can shout, there's always someone who sees through it quietly. The seasons turned again. Fall came. Then snow. Then melt. And I realized the light on the porch had never gone out. Not once. That bulb had lasted through her betrayal, her exit, my silence, and everything after. That small, constant glow became a reminder. I never left myself. Even when she did. The world kept spinning. The story faded from her friend's lips. Her name became just that, a name. Not a wound. Not a song I couldn't stop hearing. Just a word. And mine. Mine became whole again. Unstitched from hers. Free. I wasn't angry anymore. I didn't need her to apologize. She already had, with her actions, her retreat, her silence. Some people bury themselves, and call it starting over. I just let her. Because she was never the home she pretended to be. She left the light on. And I left the door open. But I walked out of that house before I ever packed a thing. Some exits don't need luggage. Just truth. And space enough to walk into yourself. The street was quieter than I remembered. Early spring in Portland has a way of softening everything, sidewalks still damp from overnight rain, daffodils pushing up along the chain-link fences, the occasional rusted wind chime still trying to sing. It had been just over a year since she left. I hadn't walked down this block since the week she packed her last bag. But today I did. Not for nostalgia. For closure. The house hadn't changed much. Same paint. Same porch swing she insisted we buy. It creaked in the breeze like an old friend telling one more story. I stood across the street, hands in my jacket pockets, and took it in, not with longing, but with calm. Somewhere inside those walls, we had once tried to love each other. And we had failed. Spectacularly. Quietly. Honestly. There was a small for rent sign in the yard now. Which meant no one had made it a home again. Maybe that's what happens when a place has too many ghosts. But I wasn't here to haunt anything. I was here to leave something behind. I crossed the street and climbed the steps slowly. The porch still had that hollow wood echo. I could feel the vibration in my soles. I reached into my coat and pulled out a note. Just a folded sheet of paper. No name. No message. Just 3 words written in black ink. I stayed awake. That was it. Because in the end, that's what she never did. She slept through us. Through me. Through the cost of her own choices. But I had stayed awake. I had listened. Watched. Reflected. Rebuilt. I had felt everything. And survived it. I slid the note under the door. Not because I thought she'd see it. Because I needed to leave it. Some truths aren't for the one who hurt you. They're for the place where you forgot yourself, so you can say, not anymore. On the walk back, I passed the small cafe where we used to meet after her shifts. It had a new name now. Different chairs. But the same smell of ground beans and cinnamon. I walked in, ordered a black coffee, and sat by the window. Across the room, a young couple argued softly about whose turn it was to do the dishes. And for a moment, I felt the old version of me, the one who would have looked at them and seen foreshadowing. But I didn't. I just smiled. Because not every disagreement becomes a fracture. Not every silence hides betrayal. And not every story needs to end in fire to be finished. I paid, tipped too much, and walked outside. The wind had picked up. The air smelled like wet bark and spring sap. And I realized. I didn't hate her. I didn't love her. I didn't wish her well, or wish her harm. I simply didn't carry her anymore. And that was the sweetest revenge. Some men burn things down to feel better. Some leave scars to make sure they're remembered. But me? I rebuilt a life so quietly that no one clapped, and that was the point. Because the loudest justice is peace earned in private. The kind no one can take or twist. The kind she'll never find in someone else's arms. If she ever drives by that house again and finds the note, she won't recognize the handwriting. She won't know what it means. But she'll feel it. And maybe, just maybe, she'll realize that the man she thought would never change already did. Not for her. For himself.
What do you think of the story? Write in the comments.